This week we're moving from water-soluble vitamins to fat-soluble vitamins. So I want to give just a brief overview of some key things to think about as you're going through the unit materials and reading the text this week. So a lot of concepts that we talked about with water-soluble vitamins will carry over for fat-soluble. So kind of don't forget about those aspects. So again, remembering the dietary reference intakes, including RDAs as well as tolerable upper limits for those for the fat-soluble vitamins. So kind of some of those basic things. And then also remember fat-soluble vitamins are going to have similar issues in terms of there's varying forms of the vitamins that can be found in the body as well as in supplements or food. Also think about the issues that could potentially happen with digestion, absorption, and transport, similar to water-soluble vitamins, as well as how we might assess the nutrient status of various fat-soluble vitamins. So how would we know if someone's status of vitamin D was adequate or their status of vitamin E was adequate or that sort of thing? Sometimes that's easier than other times. And then the whole idea that there are gene variants and or health conditions that may impact the metabolism of a particular nutrient or a vitamin, in this case, a fat-soluble vitamin, in particular converting from one form to the other or that sort of thing. So just kind of be aware of that. Fat-soluble vitamins, one thing that's a little bit different is they have much more diverse functions than water-soluble vitamins. So water-soluble vitamins are a little bit easier to categorize, to sort of group together, where fat-soluble vitamins really have quite variable functions and different functions, but there's not so many of them. So remember the fat-soluble vitamins, we're talking about A, D, E, and K. And then something that I think you're probably aware of, but always important to remember with fat soluble, is that the body does store them for longer than water soluble vitamins. And this can have its pros and cons. The con perhaps is that there's more potential to reach a toxicity level of fat soluble because our body doesn't excrete them as easily. One pro of the body being able to store them for longer is it takes longer to develop a deficiency of a fat soluble vitamin than it does for water soluble. So water soluble vitamins we really need to be replacing very frequently through our diet or supplements or whatever. And fat soluble, we can go a little bit longer stretch, so we can kind of have a bigger quantity and then our body's able to hold that on for longer. However, keep in mind the things we talked about last week in terms of our body can only absorb so much at a time due to carriers, things like that. So that still is a factor. Something to consider, and it depends a bit in as far as what sort of form the vitamin is given in, but something to consider there. So those are just kind of some key concepts. Again, in the unit this week, I'll use a couple of specific examples to illustrate some points I'd like to highlight, but it doesn't mean that those are necessarily more important vitamins than another one. They just may be a good one to illustrate some certain points, and then kind of keep those general concepts in mind as you read about the other vitamins throughout the unit and the text this week.